Vice Chair Guest from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To both of our gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for the men and women that serve under your command. I want you to know that the frustration and the anger that you may feel today is not directed at you personally, and it's clearly not directed under the men and women that serve under you, but is directed at this administration, which has not only failed the American public, but has failed the officers that serve with you. Chief, I want to expand a little bit on something that Chairman Green touched on. He talked about operational control of the border, and I think you were very candid when you said that we do not have operational control of the border. I want to follow that up with a question. Is the border secure? We have heard repeatedly from Secretary Mayorkas when he has testified before this hearing. He has told myself, he has told Congressman Bishop that. We heard him tell Congressman Roy in a Judiciary Committee the same thing. We've heard the Vice President say that. The Vice President said in an interview with Meet the Press when asked by Chuck Todd, she said the border is secure, but we have a broken immigration system. Then she went on to say we have a secure border and that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration, but there are still a lot of problems. And so my question to you, Chief, is the border secure?
Thank you, Congressman. I will tell you that I'm responsible for the northern border, I'm responsible for our coastal sectors, and I'm responsible for the southwest border. And I'm going to break it down real quick. Northern border, I have 8 sectors up on the northern border, and I've got 1 sector that is experiencing an awful lot of influx of migrants from Canada. I went to Ottawa, Canada about 4 weeks ago, met with my RCMP partners, and we're addressing that threat. I've got 25 additional agents deployed up there. And at one point, I had 854 officers deployed from the northern border to the southern border to help with the situation that we were encountering. I no longer have to do that. Out in our coastal sectors, I've got tremendous.
And don't want to cut you off, Chief, but my time is the southern border secure. I'm not worried about the northern border. Let's talk strictly about the southern border. Is your testimony that it is secure or is not secure?
When you look at the southwest border, I have 9 southwest border sectors from San Diego to here to South Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Out of the 9 southwest border sectors, I feel like the men and women are doing a phenomenal job in 4 of them with respect to the amount of flow and the processing that we are encountering on a daily basis. 5 of those southwest border sectors are experiencing a higher level of flow than we have seen previously, and that creates some unique challenges for us, and it puts a strain on the overall immigration system, not just for myself, but for our partner agencies, for our sheriff's departments, police departments. And so I have to move resources into those 5 southwest border sectors, and that forces me to make some adjustments across the entire 2,000 miles of the southwest border.
All right, so I'm taking it then as your testimony that 5 of the 9 sectors on the southwest border are not currently secure. Let me ask you if you would agree with this statement. This is a statement that Colonel McGraw with the Texas Department of Public Safety, he will be testifying in the second panel. I'm sure you know him well and you work very closely with him. He, in his written statement, said that it is the assessment of the Texas Department of Public Safety that the most significant public safety and homeland security threat to Texas and our nation is an unsecured border with Mexico. He goes on to say, and again, this is not directed at your men individually, but more at the administration, the federal government has failed to do its constitutional duty and secure the border. This failure comes at the detriment of our citizens and the benefit of the Mexican cartels. And of course, we have seen Mexican cartels become extremely active in human trafficking and drug smuggling. We saw the Gulf Cartel kill 2 Americans, shot another just recently south of Brownsville. Of course, we saw very disturbing images this week of the mass surge there at the El Paso port of entry, where I believe there were roughly 1,000 immigrants who tried to surge into the United States. And so my question is, do you agree with the statement of Colonel McGraw when he talks about that this is a public safety threat and a threat to homeland security?
Yes, sir. I do agree with Colonel McCraw. I have an excellent relationship with the state of Texas. We continue to work those partnerships, both with our sheriffs, our police departments here in Texas and across the southwest border. I will tell you this, though, when you think about a secure border, right now we're experiencing about 4,800 apprehensions a day in a 24-hour period. Our agents are doing a phenomenal job across the entire southwest border managing that. I'm not having to decompress flights like I was having to do 3 and 4 months ago. We're able to repatriate more individuals to their host country now than we ever have. 31 flights last week, 35 flights this week. We need to continue these consequences in order to affect the right response and the right effect across these border situations.
And Chief, I know I'm out of time, but you and I were in a hearing in D.C. on Tuesday. With us was an admiral from the Coast Guard. That admiral testified that mass immigration is a national security issue. Do you agree with his assessment?
Yes, sir.
I now recognize Mr. Bishop of North Carolina.
Chief Ortiz, I think you came in here to tell the truth today. Sit down and offer some candor to this congressional committee. And I want to start off by telling you that that is a breath of fresh air, and it is inconsistent with what I've heard over and over from administration officials so far. You have candidly acknowledged in responses to questions already that we do not have operational control of the border. You've effectively acknowledged that the border is not secure on much of the southwestern border. I think you might be trying to walk a fine line because you don't want to be insubordinate to your superiors. But if there's ever been a time for candor to a congressional committee, it is right now. And I'm going to ask you about the cause. You've continued to your written testimony. I'm sure that's substantially prepared or revised in Washington. Starts off: evolving global and regional events continue to produce challenging conditions and trends along the southwestern border. You say you trace the beginning of the fantastic climb in illegal immigration across the border to COVID. I heard you say earlier today, changing conditions. Chief, in fiscal year 2020, the policy was detain and remove. The entire objective was to avoid releasing any illegal immigrant for any reason. In 2021, Secretary Mayorkas, the new administration, gutted all of those policies. MPP, safe third countries, family detention, asylum bars, T-42 for minors, etc. Record numbers resulted. Record numbers followed. Let me say that, because I'm going to ask you whether it was result or cause. Be it parole, NTA, NTR, etc. Illegals are apprehended by Border Patrol but allowed to remain non-detained in the U.S. Now, I want some candor, Chief. Do you acknowledge, as the Chief of the Border Patrol, that the driver of the crisis that you have described, of this dramatic change in flow, the policy is the policy of this administration to release instead of detain or remove illegal immigrants? That's my question.
Congressman Bishop, thank you for the question. I will tell you that law enforcement is pretty simple, sir. You have to have capacity and you have to have consequences. And anytime you don't have consequences, you're certainly going to see some increases. And we continue to try and repatriate individuals back to countries that we can repatriate. But it's been a challenge for us, because what we saw this past year were individuals from Cuba, individuals from Haiti, individuals from Nicaragua, where we have a difficult time repatriating. It's not my responsibility. I work closely with my ICE partners to make sure that we're able to expel or, return individuals back to their host countries. But it has been a significant challenge for us, and I do think that has been a driver of some of the increases that we have seen.
So you've attenuated that a little bit, Chief. I appreciate, again, I think you've been candid in that answer. But you've attenuated it. It's a driver of some of the increases. Sir, we're all familiar with this chart. I mean, we see it in our sleep. Right? I came into Congress down here in fiscal year 2020. And I visited as soon as I came down the border then, and I saw the empty port of entry station where nobody was in there flooded. You'd seen the films from back in May. And here's where we are now, sir. That was December. Worst in history, and we've been up in that territory for years. And there's always been 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day. Poor, as Chairman Green said. The cause is the change in policy. Is it not, sir? Will you be candid enough to be unequivocal and clear that that has driven the change?
I will tell you, sir, that when I was a deputy chief and the acting chief down here in 2014, you know, a lot of people described what was happening here in South Texas as a humanitarian crisis, a border crisis. And I was very candid, and I said that I think we have a bit of a policy crisis. And I still hold true that we have some policies in place where we need to ensure that the men and women out there patrolling the border, investigating these criminal cartels, are actually allowed to do their job each and every day.
And their job is to detain or remove illegal immigrants.
Yes, sir.
And you've talked about, and your pride, look, I want to say this, your pride in the men and women you lead, and I know what the circumstances is that compels you to come in here and show this level of candor to this congressional committee, and that's the men and women that you're serving, because they're under stress like they've never seen. And it is an abomination. It is despicable that people in Washington would set policy that would cause that to those men and women, and that would cause the inhumane destruction of lives that you see to migrants who are coming over in these conditions, and that would cause the devastation that's spreading throughout the United States in consequence of that. I want to thank you for telling the Congress what your duty compels you to tell us, which is the truth. Thank you, Chief Ortiz.
Gentleman yields. I recognize Mr. Jimenez from Florida.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chief Ortiz, for your candor. You're in a tough spot, okay, and I know. I have a question for you. Supposedly we have 1.3 million getaways that we know of. What is your estimate of the people that we don't know about that got away?
Thank you, Congressman Jimenez, and good to see you again, sir. I will tell you that the got-away number is a number that for a long time was associated with art. It was our agents out there actually cutting swaths of country and using, you know, footprints as an indicator as to what we were seeing out there. That was our situational awareness. With the investments that this Congress has made into the Border Patrol, CBP as a whole, we have greater situational awareness now than I've ever had. My confidence level in that got-away number continues to increase. Is it 100%? No, sir. At 385,000 gotaways so far this fiscal year, we continue to refine that number. I've got to do a better job of accounting for the actual encounters.
Chief, I have limited time. I just need a number. What percentage of the 1.3 that you know got away, how much more do you think got away that you don't know about?
In my estimation, based upon the situational awareness that I have, probably be between 10 and 20%, sir.
More?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kagan, HSI, I equate the chemicals coming from mainly China as being the weapons, and then I equate the cartels as being the soldiers. You spoke a lot about the weapon, trying to stop the flow of the drug or the precursor chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't hear much about the soldiers, the cartels themselves. What are you doing about the soldiers?
Thank you for the question. Good to see you again. The cartels, the TCOs as a whole, we investigate them together. So you're breaking it up separately. We don't break it up separately because one needs the other back and forth. The work that we're doing to go after the cartels in Mexico and push the borders out is definitely done on the ground with our men and women within all of the U.S. government, and our partnerships. One thing that we are strong with is the partnerships with Mexico. I do understand that over the years, different political pressures in different areas swing, but on the ground, as HSI working with our partners, we have great partnerships. A huge vetted unit that is very strong. I believe it's just around 60 active criminal investigations on the drug cartels as we speak today, and they're very strong in how they operate.
Is that being conducted investigations in Mexico? Are they going to be charged in Mexico? Are they going to be charged in the United States? Where are these soldiers going to be charged? And
it depends. It depends on the investigation, the level of the investigation, whether it's the leaders of the cartel, whether it's the henchmen, whatever it may be. It depends on where they're prosecuted. We extradite people often to serve, to come in front of a jury here in the U.S., but we also then help, and this is why we're so strong with our Mexican partners, because we work cases that are mutually beneficial. So
Well,
if they're trying to go after corruption,
Again, I only have limited
after,
time, and I need to get to some points that I want to make. Sorry to cut you off.
that's fine, sir.
Okay. Would it surprise you? According to the LA Times, Mexican overdoses, people that died in Mexico, okay, numbered something like 1,700 in 2020. They numbered over 100,000 here in the United States. And even taking into account the difference in population, by my math, it's like 25. We are 25 times more likely to have an overdose death in the United States than we are in Mexico, which seems kind of strange to me, seeing that that's where the stuff is produced. So it's one of two things. Either they're vastly underreporting the overdose deaths in Mexico, which then would make the Mexican people go a little bit, be perturbed at their leadership for not doing something about it, or there's something going on, some kind of unwritten rule that maybe they produce it there and they don't really sell it there, they don't push it there, but they do push it up here. So I'm really disturbed about that. And so these numbers continue to rise. We don't have control of the southern border. The testimony from the chief says that the cartels now control the southern border, many portions of the southern border, and these soldiers are killing 100,000 Americans. And so I'm not sure what it is that you're doing, but whatever you're doing, I don't think it's enough at this point. Sorry. Thank you. My time is up.
Gentleman yields, and I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Pfluger.
Thank you, Chairman. America, wake up. Look over here to the side, to the colleagues that should be here, to my Democrat colleagues. How disrespectful is it? Chief, thank you for being here. Director, thank you for being here. Please tell everyone in your organization thank you for their service. It's extremely disrespectful of my Democrat colleagues to not be here, to not support those who would put their lives on the line to keep our country safe. America needs to wake up to that fact. Chairman Thompson said last year that he would have a border hearing, and he never did. And now he's acting as a partisan agent. Chief Ortiz, we were in Del Rio under that bridge together with the 20,000 Haitian migrants. We've been in El Paso together. We've been here together. You've mentioned that we don't have operational control of the border, that in over 50% of the southwest border that it's not secure. You've talked about capacity and consequences. And my question for you is, have you shared, as the expert, I'd like you to channel that first and second year Agent Ortiz, Officer Ortiz, the tactical expert. Have you shared your recommendations of how to secure the border with Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas?
I would tell you that the Secretary and I have candid conversations about what's happening on the southwest border, and we are exploring every opportunity to make sure that we continue to add capacity for the men and women out there. So to answer your question, yes, I have shared my operational experiences from the last 32 years with the Secretary.
So one of those has been consequences. Every agent that I talk to, hundreds of agents that work within CBP, have mentioned that they don't believe that there are consequences, that they don't believe. And you've mentioned the repatriation flights. Is the Secretary listening to your recommendations? Because it certainly appears that that's not happening.
Yes, I will tell you that the Secretary and myself have increased consequences for criminal aliens. We've seen more criminal aliens apprehended in the last 24 months than we've seen previously, and we continue to prosecute, work with our DOJ partners and our AUSAs across the southwest border. We are sitting at about a 93% acceptance rate. Certainly not enough. We need to add more capacity. We need to have more assistant U.S. attorneys. We need to have more prosecutions agents so we can ensure that we instill those consequences that you described. But I will say that we have increased the level of prosecutions across the southwest border in the neighborhood of about 35%. And so that needs to continue, sir.
Chief, when you look at the cartels and the fact that they're making billions of dollars off of the human trafficking, the smuggling of drugs, the humanitarian crisis. 53 people died in a tractor trailer in July of last year south of San Antonio, not too far from here. Do you believe that the cartels are acting as a terrorist organization?
Whether they're acting as a terrorist organization or a criminal organization, I think that the Border Patrol, CBP, DHS, all of our partner agencies need to concentrate their efforts against the cartels, because they certainly are working both in the human trafficking arena as well as the narcotics trafficking arena. And we recognize that they have expanded their capabilities immensely. And so I think it's got to be a whole of government approach. And for me, they are criminals. They are 100% criminal organizations.
Do you believe that we are acting as a whole of government approach to prevent the cartels from what they're doing?
I will tell you from a law enforcement perspective, we've got tremendous partnerships, and we're going to continue to do that. Once again, I believe it's a capacity issue. We need more officers on the front lines.
Do you think we can do more?
Yes, sir.
Director Kagan, you've seized 3.3 million pounds of precursor chemicals. How much money have the cartels profited as a result of shipping that fentanyl? I'm looking at several sheriffs behind you from my district who are experiencing the trauma, the chaos from fentanyl in our own communities. How much money are the cartels making year in and year out?
I don't have the specific answer for you, but we have a fentanyl problem, and we need to fix it. And
how do we fix that problem?
I agree with the chief. More capacity building, more people on the border to secure the border, as well as more investigative efforts. We have to surge our resources to the border, which is what we do, and we have done it for years. Operation Expanded Impact is HSI's framework that we utilize to surge resources to the border in times like this. But it hits a point where there's so drugs coming across and humans coming across that we need more resources on the border, especially when I mentioned that CBP Office of Field Operations is going to increase their non-inspection capabilities. It's only going to create more responses to the ports of entry, more investigations, which is more resources that HSI will need in order to combat and investigate these transnational criminal organizations.
Thank you, Chairman. My time has expired. You'll back.